πάροχος της Καστοριάς τραβούσε τα μαλλιά του σαν ήρθανε τα ταρκικά.
Hello, welcome back once again to to Comrade Uncle. I'm your Comrade Nephew. I'm here with my Comrade Uncle, Dr. Abraham Joseph Layon. He's the
46 years.
He's the man.
You can just call me PGY 46.
PGY 46.
Postgraduate year 46. That just means I've been doing this for a really long time.
Oh, 46. 1946. Did they have
No,
cars
not
back
19,
then?
not 1946. PGY 46.
Oh, PGY 46. I was going to say.
Postgraduate year. That's 1979 to today is a PGY 46. So, never mind.
You didn't go to, you weren't contemporary with Salk or whatever?
Salk, no, I think Salk was a little earlier than me. Which does bring up some issues we should talk about, which is vaccines, autism, vaccination rates, and death rates.
Yes.
We've of course, there's multiple things I think we ought to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Every time in the last, last year and a half, we've been talking about as well, briefly about what's going on in Palestine. I think we should do that. But I think first, why don't we do a quick rundown on what's going on with the U.S. health system? Because since Trump's, and he calls it the big, beautiful bill. I don't want to even use those terms. It's just this disgusting piece of legislation. There are serious problems. And of course, we've touched on a bunch of these in the past. I think one of our episodes, we talked about all of the appointees in the health sector that Trump made, from RFK JR down. Almost every one of them are incompetent ideologues. There's a couple that are, honest to God, physicians with weird positions, but just really ideologues.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's as in September, there's two guys that I actually follow on Twitter. A guy named Neil Stone, who's an infectious disease guy, I think in Scotland, I think. And a guy named Peter Hotez, who is the Dean of Tropical Medicine at University of Texas Children's Hospital, University of Texas, and vaccinologist. He's done a bunch of cool work, really cool work. Like, actually, you mentioned Jonas Salk. Like Salk, created patent-free vaccines.
That is so cool.
Very, very cool. The guy is very cool. He has taken serious flack from the anti-vax clowns on Twitter. And he, to his credit, he stays on and he explains every time, nope, this is not what you're saying is not true, this is what's true. But it all matters because Peter Hotez, Dr. Hotez's daughter, one of his daughters, is autistic, and he wrote a book. I believe it's entitled Rachel's Autism Isn't Due to Vaccines, something like that, exact title. But what RFK Jr. has said is that he will have by September cause of autism. And there are decades and decades and decades of research trying to find this. It appears to be a genetically mediated event. It's not vaccine related. But what RFK Jr. has done is he's put a guy named David Geyer on his board to try and figure out the cause. David Geyer, who the audience...
Who is this guy?
He is the son of Dr. Geyer. I can't remember Dr. Geyer's first name. He is the son. They produced some 30-ish papers on autism, all of which have been removed for faulty methodology.
That's a great sign.
I mean, just terrible work. Faulty methodology, faulty statistics. They had boards of they were supposed to review the research that were made up of their family and friends. So while it may not be, while their work may not be, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but while it may not be falsified, as was the guy who published his work in Lancet that started this whole thing. That was just falsified work. It's very poor quality. It's unusable. It's garbage is what it is. And that's who
Right.
RFK Jr. has placed onto the committee to try to sort this out. So it does not speak well of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There is a huge backlash movement that is just unbelievably dangerous, anti-vax, that is really a problem. And I think what we need to do is put in this slot when this goes live, we need to put those graphs that show lives saved overall across the world from vaccines, and then lives saved from measles vaccine, lives saved from smallpox vaccine. So I've sent those graphs earlier. I think those are worth putting up because it's in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of lives.
Right.
And this is, of course, particularly important now because there is still an active measles epidemic going on in the United States that has killed a handful, not a lot, it's killed a handful, but it's taken, but there's hundreds of cases. Actually, I think now there's thousands of cases, a few hundred in the hospital and a few deaths. But what it's done is it puts people at grave risk for complications, not just death.
Right.
Measles has the uncanny ability to be like a magnet near your hard drive in that it wipes out memory cells of other agents that you're immune to. So it puts you at huge, I certainly don't understand it. I think what it does is it just kills the cells, but I'm not, like, the physiology, I'm not perfectly clear, but that is what it does. And so this is like not a small deal to ignore measles vaccines, to ignore diphtheria, tetanus. This guy I mentioned, Neil Stone, is probably one of the few ID guys, I may be wrong about this in general, but one of the few ID guys who has actually treated a patient with tetanus. And I'm one of the few non-ID guys who has treated a patient with tetanus.
ID, what's ID?
Infectious disease.
Yeah, infectious disease. Okay,
that's his specialty. But when I was in 1981 in Nicaragua, the Nicaraguan Revolution, we had one patient who had tetanus. That guy died, and it was ugly. It was ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is utterly preventable, right? I mean, you puncture your foot with a nail, you puncture your hand with a nail, you're not immunized, you can get tetanus. Unbelievable. So I think,
and the treatment is the treatment is the vaccine, right? With tetanus.
The treatment is the treatment is
otherwise
prevention. You get the vaccine. There is toxoid, antitoxin, I should say, that can help. But if you're not immunized and if you present with symptoms, you're in big trouble. You can, once you present to the hospital or the ED or wherever you present to the clinic, after poking yourself with a rusty nail, you can at that moment immunize yourself. But in those in those early years, during the early years of the Nicaraguan Revolution, there wasn't such access, and this guy had never been immunized. So this raises massive issues for morbidity as well as mortality. Measles, tetanus, diphtheria, whooping cough. There's been no recrudescence of smallpox, but one could expect that might even occur. And again, one of the other papers that I sent to you that we should put up is a history, a timeline of immunization. One of the very, very first immunizations was in fact smallpox. And we think of this guy Jenner of 17 something, discovering that milkmaids who had been exposed to cowpox, which is similar to but not the same as smallpox, because they milked cows. They had lesions on the udders of the cows. Were protected, and he from that immunized a kid, and then from that there's what was called vaccination against smallpox. But probably about 1,000 years before BCE, before the Common Era, there appears to have been immunization in the Chinese. I can't say literature because it isn't really a literature, but in
Mhm.
writings and there was
Historical record.
apparently a historical record. There was apparently immunization against smallpox then that was, of course, lost. So
Right.
so this is not this is not something that just started yesterday. Oh, if
Mhm.
it was, like, whatever. But the point is it's been we've been using vaccines for millennia. This is a huge deal, and it's a huge deal
Right.
to ignore the benefits. And it's not that there's never side effects, because everything we do in medicine is side effects. Everything that we use pharmacologically in medicine has a dose response effect. What do I mean by that? This is a glass of water.
Mhm.
You don't think of it as being chemical, but it's actually dihydrogen oxide. It is a chemical. In the amount that I drink, it's not going to hurt, but I could over imbibe and I could become severely hyponatremic. That is to say, my serum sodium would drop to dangerous levels, altering my mental status, causing seizures and potentially death if I took too much of it. That's a dose response. Now, it's pretty hard to do that, but I've treated a handful of cases. Actually, let me rephrase it. I've not treated a handful of it. No, I've treated a significant number of cases of hyponatremia, not always related to over imbibing of water, other causes as well. But in other words, the dose response effect is important. It's important with salt. It's important with fluoride. It's important with chlorine. I mean, all of the things that are toxic. I mean, it's true. Fluoride is toxic in high amounts, but in the amounts we put in toothpaste and in water, absolutely not. And it protects kids' teeth.
Or naturally occurs. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't naturally occur in very many places. It does not.
It does.
I believe in Wisconsin, somewhere in Wisconsin.
Got it.
Yes, where that was initially seen. Yes.
Yeah.
But
where I live.
But that was the scientific method and serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
But what people do not remember, is that it's not just a matter of having kind of holes in your teeth. It's mandibular abscesses that become systemic, that can cause death. That happens as well because if you have cavities. So this is not just a small deal. This is a potentially big deal. When you're talking about hundreds of millions of people, it's billions of people. It's a huge deal.
Right.
So the fact that RFK Jr. is in charge of Health and Human Services, the fact that he has utterly slashed and frankly emasculated, if that's the appropriate term to use here, the CDC, is not a small deal. The CDC, which is a crown jewel of the United States. I have friends who work for the Epidemiology Intelligence Service of the CDC. I mean, it is a crown jewel, and it has been slashed. 1,500 people fired. Half of their offices closed. They were recently, actually it was in Wisconsin again, they were unable to respond to a lead poisoning episode because they didn't have the staff. Trump and his band of miscreant incompetence have decided that they were going to take away from CDC tasks which truly are not exactly infectious, but because of the way infection impacts multiple other areas, are totally relevant to what CDC does, including nutrition, lead, stuff like that, lead poisoning and so forth. So these guys have really caused significant damage. And that's even before, I say again, Trump's idiotic bill that was passed by the Republican legislature.
Right.
And that is incredibly dangerous. Now, to step back, we're talking about healthcare, so we'll focus on healthcare. But one has to remember, this was a basically $1.1, not mistaken, trillion dollar bill that's actually, that's not quite cheap. It led to about $1.1 trillion in tax cuts, almost all permanent, almost all for the wealthy, some small cuts, impermanent, temporary, for working people.
Yeah, and capped
for working people.
They were talking points. I mean, and like that's part of this, outflanking outflanking the Democrats to the quote unquote left. It's messaging. It's bullshit, right? But like, people shouldn't be taxed. Their tips. I mean, give me a fucking break, right? Like all this sort of regressive stuff, but it's capped. It's not, and it doesn't last. And it's, it's a line of, bullshit.
It's not hard to outflank the Democratic Party from either the left or the right or above or below, because it is led by a bunch of donkeys. And that's insulting donkeys, because I actually have good respect for donkeys. But they are led by donkeys, fools, Jeffries and Schumer, who are utter, in my mind, incompetent. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
So $1 trillion tax cut. Now, how do they initially pay for that? Well, there's about $960 billion over 10 years of cuts in Medicaid. Not Medicare, Medicaid. Medicaid is one of Lyndon Johnson's centerpieces from his 64-65 state-federal program that provides something on the order of 50%, pays for something on the order of 50% of care for children in the United States. 50% of kids have, that's going to be cut. It also pays for disabled folks and so forth. So it is not a small deal. It's also part of the way that Obama developed the Affordable Care Act was to expand Medicaid. So the states that expanded Medicaid got a significant amount of federal dollars. That's going to be slashed as well. It's going to be harder to get to find programs you can buy into, insurance programs you can buy into with the Affordable Care Act. There used to be, or there is today still, but they're soon to be gone, aid for people who didn't have adequate funds to buy into that program. That will be gone too.
Right.
So
there was already a gap. Now it's going to frickin' widen that gap. There was already people that were following outside of it, and it's worse.
It was never. Listen, it was.
Yeah, right.
It was in its moment a progressive reform, and then it just stopped there, unfortunately. And it stopped there because neither Obama nor Biden had the gumption, interest, desire to try and enhance it. So we had some kind of Medicare for all, as Sanders would say, or a program similar to that, something like that. Which, by the way, that's something that we should talk about again, because the Medicare for all, given the corporatization and venture capitalization of healthcare, has made Medicare for all a little bit of a challenge to do. But anyway, that's for a different time. Yeah. So something on the order of 11 to 15 million people will lose access to healthcare. $960 billion cut over 10 years. And a huge swath of that is care of children. Supposed to be our most important resource, right? Supposed to be.
Right.
Clearly not the case with the Trump administration. Frankly, but probably not. It doesn't seem like it's that important for the Dems either. But no. Certainly with Trump, it's not important. In addition to the Medicaid cuts, there's also Medicare cuts. But there's one more thing I wanted to mention about Medicaid. Actually, two more things. One is they've added a work requirement.
Yeah.
Now, most able-bodied men and women on Medicaid who can work are working. People who are in school or have childcare or are disabled can't. So it's not like you're going to get a bunch of people to go, pick tomatoes in the fields or something like that. It's not going to happen. What they are going to do is they're going to make the reporting requirements so onerous that people will lose Medicaid. That's what's good.
Right.
It's also important to point out that one of the things that I sort of touched on this a second ago, there were funds to help people who couldn't afford to buy the insurance policies with the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
In places like California, for example, you could be 134% above the federal poverty level. Now you say, okay, that's what does that mean? Well, for a family of two, that's about a couple of years ago, that's about $20,000. 134% is 30% more than $20,000. That's what. So 10% of 20 thousand is 2,000, 30% is 6,000. So that means if you made $26,000, a family of two, you could still get Medicaid. Now that's Medicaid. You can still get help, and you can get out of the Affordable Care. You still get it. That's not much money. Interestingly, not so interestingly, but shamefully, in Texas, if you make anything more than 34% of the type of poverty line, if you're more than 34% above the, forgive me, I'm wrong. If you make more than 34% of federal poverty level income, so family of two, 20,000, 30%, that's about $7,000 a year. You're not eligible for Medicaid. Now that number does increase if you're a family of 8, it's $50,000. So it increases depending on the number of kids. But my point is only this: 1, it's not enough money to live on. 2, even at the 134% of the federal poverty line, it's still not enough money to live on. And 3, if you live in Texas, you are being utterly abused by your government. If you make above 34% of the federal poverty line, you will not be eligible. So what these guys have done is they are ensuring that the American people will be sicker, poorer, eat less healthily, and basically have rotten teeth because there will be fluoride in their water.
Right.
So that's Medicaid. Medicare, the cut over about 10 years is something less. It's about $90 billion, so $9 billion a year. You can say, well, maybe that's not so bad, but there's a little bit of a problem with this because the way that this bill has been written is they have increased the federal debt they cut about $1.4 trillion from spending, but they decreased the income of the government by about 4.5. So the debt increases by $3.4 trillion, if I'm not mistaken, over 10 years. What that will do is automatically result in cuts to Medicare.
Yeah.
Above and beyond the $90 billion they're cutting, that may be as much as $500 billion.
Okay, so remind people, and for our listeners that aren't in the U.S., Medicare, Medicaid.
So, in 1964, 1965, Lyndon Johnson, who was a war criminal because of the illegal war of aggression he perpetrated on the people of Vietnam. I mean, he was a war criminal.
No doubt.
But like all of us, we're not all war criminals, of course, but, he had sides to him that were not faultless. And he was a man who believed in equal rights, at least in the United States, and he believed that it was wrong for poor people to suffer simply because they were poor, or old people to suffer simply because they were old. So he passed a handful of, he signed a handful of bills. He was very aggressive in getting them passed. And one was the Medicare Medicaid Act. And Medicare is a program primarily for the elderly, 65 and above. You pay into it with your tax on your salary, about 1.45% of your salary, unlimited, uncapped, no matter how much you make. And then your employer pays the same amount. So it's about 2.9% goes into the Medicare trust fund for each person each year, depending on what their salary is. It's considered part of the FICA taxation, which also includes Social Security. Social Security, you're capped at $170,000, and it's I believe it's is it 4.5%? I've forgotten exactly the number, but it's capped, and so but that's all. It's all tax funded.
So basically,
that's Medicare.
What you're saying is, I'm sorry. So Medicare basically is one part to take care of you when you're old, you go to retire, and another part so when you can't work anymore, in other words, and the other part in case you get hurt on the job, for example, or you become disabled for whatever reason, or maybe you're disabled, whatever. But one part is that it is people's money, right? And it's it's this 2-part thing to help you when you're old, or if something happens to
Or
you
disabled.
that you
That's
can't
right.
work.
So
Or disabled.
Social Security, of course, did not belong to Johnson. That was FDR.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's about 4% of wages, capped at $170,000 now. That the
Mm-hmm.
Social Security Trust Fund will go bankrupt at some point because
Right.
of that cap. That doesn't have to happen, but it will happen
Right.
because of the cap. The Medicare Trust
And
Fund
they've rated it.
will. I mean, they'll just slash services is what they'll do
Right.
because of the debt. Medicaid is a dual state federal program that is literally paid for both by the state and the federal government, depending upon the average income of an individual in the state. So depending on the state's average income, the federal government kicks in more or less money. And that has historically been a problematic payer. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. It pays for 50% of health care for children in the United States. It's not a gross. It's not a useless program at all.
No.
It pays for a significant number of elderly people's stays in nursing homes once they can no longer care for themselves and can't be cared for by their families. Demented people. So that's nursing home care. The issue with Medicaid is that they have, of course, slashed the funding seriously. It'll be over a 10-year period. And they've slashed the ability of states to raise money to fund the state portion. And this gets a tiny bit complicated, but it's worth commenting on. When I was a physician I was a professor at the University of Florida for years, and we used to say, I didn't say it. I mean, I guess I did say it, but because the financial guys would say this, and I would repeat it. Yet Florida Medicaid paid so little to us physicians that it didn't even, it wasn't even worthwhile to turn on the lights. And it is true that they paid. It's not just Florida Medicaid; it's Medicaid in general pays quite poorly to physicians. But what they do is they have a higher payment rate for hospitals in certain kinds of clinics. And so it did make sense. But the way that the state raised the money to fund its portion of Medicaid, now again, this is a little in the weeds, but I think it matters, is of course through general revenue, typical, and through a set of taxes that they utilized, including taxes on the money that we generated across the board as physicians. The Trump administration has significantly decreased the ability for the states to use that money to come up with their portion, making it harder for states to come up with their part, making it harder for them to pay for their people, making it more likely that they'll slash Medicaid in one way or another as well, just like the feds are doing. So
wow.
This is a multi-pronged attack that has been thought about very clearly, right? Remember Project 2025? We talked about it a while ago. This is all part of Project 2025. There's nothing secret about this. They made it clear what they were going to do. Our Democratic friends and neighbors didn't pay attention, didn't take up the flag.
Or we're on board.
It was clear that that's what they were going to be, or we're on board. And so, of course, because they ran away from Green New Deal, they ran away from Medicare for All, they ran toward the genocide. A whole bunch of people said, I can't vote for this person. And they either stayed home or voted for, Jill Stein or somebody. And what the result is that we have Trump. Now we can have discussion about right, wrong, but that's what happened. And so the result is that our healthcare environment is going to become manifestly worse in the next handful of years. It's not just Medicaid cuts. It's not just Medicare cuts. It's the way that the states fund Medicaid is being limited. It's the massive increase. Remember that the national debt of the United States has been coming into existence for 250, I can't remember, years. 25% of that debt is due to Trump's first term. 4 years. 25%. And this will make it even worse. Another 3.4, 3.7, I've forgotten, trillion dollars in debt because of the way he has slashed taxes for the rich. And of course, what's being paid for off the backs of the poor.
Yep. And what did that money go to? What? Somebody did get their budget increased. That was the military. It's very proud.
It's our ICE friends now have friends.
Yeah,
ICE
them too.
has a budget that's now larger than the budgets of several countries, the military budgets of several countries. This is, of course, a really interesting question, which is, let's just say, just for a moment here, that there's 11 million people who are without papers, who our government is going to throw out of the country. Say it's 11 million. And let's say it takes them, I don't know, a couple of years to round those folks up. What are you going to do with 10,000 more ICE agents and a handful more concentration camps? I mean, once they've taken the people who are, quote, not legally here, unquote. Actually, they've been taking people who are legally here, including citizens. But let's just, for a minute, give them just a benefit of a doubt. What are they going to do with all that money, all those agents and all those jails? I would argue that they're going to come after the rest of us. And I would argue, as I argue almost every day on Blue Sky and on Twitter, that Pastor Niemöller's poem is more relevant today than it's ever been. Because once they get these first guys, they're going to come after people who don't have papers first, and then people who have visas, and then people who have green cards, and then people who are naturalized, and then people who are regular old citizens but say things they don't like yours truly and you. So I think this is incredibly dangerous. My opponent is in here. Sorry, we're talking about healthcare and the budget. But that's where where that money's gone. It's military for sure. They've increased that. Just to sort of be clear, I want to be just perfectly clear. We come from a short line of Navy, Marine, Coast Guard people in our family. My granddad, my uncles, my dad, my mom, my son, uncles, they were all in World War II, World War I, so forth and so on. You expect, given, we would sort of snicker if someone talked to us about city-states. That kind of went away a long time ago. We would snicker if people talked about, I have snickered, when people talk about their ties to their state. Robert E. Lee wouldn't leave Virginia because he was a Virginian first on the American side. But there are still, and those are things that have passed into history. Eventually, nation states will pass into history, but today there are nation states. If there are nation states, you got to have, I guess, some kind of military. Not perhaps what we've got. You got to have something.
Certainly.
The point is, but the point is that what we've done is create this $1 trillion plus entity that is sucking the life out of our economy and that is really incapable of protecting us, to be perfectly honest. But I say all that, and especially the thing about my son and my dad and uncles, your relations too, because they stood up for the call. Could have disagreed on what the call was. Could disagree. Some of them we would have, but they stood for they stood up when they were called, and it matters to have respect for them, even if we disrespect what they were called for. Vietnam War. You're rolling your eye, but for instance,
yeah. I mean, no, I do agree. I don't want to sidetrack you, but I do agree. Again, whatever. Am I proud of my grandfather? Absolutely. But anyway. I'm not proud of the empire. Yeah.
No, I'm not, nor am I. Nor are many people who serve in those services. So that's where we stand with healthcare related issues. We, I think, are in a world of hurt. We're going to see both Medicaid and Medicare cuts. We'll see an inability for the feds to negotiate drug prices. That's also been limited significantly. We'll see hospitals, especially rural hospitals, close. There is a $50 billion 5-year program to help with loss of funds, but it goes away after 5 years.
Right.
It's not enough. It's not going to be enough. Peanuts, basically. So we will see
A lot of rural hospitals
an
closed.
environment, a healthcare environment that is going to be seriously compromised over the next handful of years. Just so a handful of really greedy people, really greedy people could have more. That doesn't say, we've not even touched on the fact that this bill of his also destroys, guts, what was the little that Biden tried to do for climate emergency. That's eliminating as well. So there's a host of things that we really need to be addressing. I think it's probably important also to say, okay, I know I've said this before, we've talked, but the first debate that I had, political debate that I had, is a 21-year-old guy at UC San Diego, was with this young right-wing, non-American for Freedom Republican. It was on our healthcare system. And he was taking the position that the healthcare system in the United States at the time, this is like 1973 years.
American for Freedom.
Yeah. Oh, no, they were, believe me, at the time, they were the most right wing of the Republican. I think they'd be considered. But anyway, that this is the best of all systems was the best of all systems and the best of all ways. So I took the opposite position. Well, I've been having the same debate for 50 years. 50 years. Only there are data. This is not just opinion. This is not just I think. There are rock solid data based on what we have in our country today that we could save tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, cover everybody in the United States, and take care of them from cradle to grave. If we had some kind of national health system, Medicare for all, for example, something. Right. Sanders has done a good job laying out how that would be paid for. It is there. Yale University has come out with their studies, same thing. Congressional Budget Office has come out with the same data. It's as clear as can be. There would be, and there are several issues that would have to be addressed out front and clearly. For example, what will be covered and what won't be covered. Some people think that you should be able to get ivermectin and mebendazole to treat yourself prophylactically for cancers. I expect that kind of stuff wouldn't be covered. Chelation therapies. There are some things that are so you would need a system in place, sort of like the National Institute of Clinical Effectiveness that the Brits, they give it a different name.
Yeah.
But you would need that. But the second thing, and probably even more important, just given the cuts that are happening to Medicare and Medicaid, is we would have to ensure that it's everybody in, nobody out. Full stop. Yeah. Congress cannot have a separate system that they use for themselves, because what they would then do is make sure they're treated well while slashing for everybody else. Everybody has to be
like they are doing.
Nobody on. Oh, exactly like they're doing. Exactly like they're doing. So there's other issues as well that would have to be addressed. But again, that's for another time, another topic. There are people way smarter than me on this that we could bring in to talk. But it does matter. And so we're going to see an environment in healthcare arena that has really changed over the next couple of years, and not in a good way. But what's important is it does not have to be this way. We can fix it. We have as I say, we have agency, but we have to get rid of the Republicans who are frank fascists at this point, I think, and that's definitional. I'm not going to go into that. People can look it up. Definitional fascists. And we have to get rid of the Democrats, who are frankly not much better than conservative Republicans at this point. We need an organization, a political party that looks out for the American people, not for themselves, not for the rich. Yeah. So that's about all I have to say on American healthcare system in 38 minutes and 59 seconds.
Not too shabby. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if you saw what just happened in the UK. They Corbyn kind of broke off and made not just him, but him and some other people made their own party and instantly got 100,000 members.
They got more members joined than any other party in the UK.
Yeah.
In fact,
whatever
but of course,
it is.
I'm not quite sure what that exactly means, because I sent him some money and I joined the party. And obviously, I'm not a Brit.
Hell yeah.
I'm a member of his party. So there may be a handful
of
furters like me who have joined because we support Corbyn. I mean, the guy is
But
good.
it's possible.
He's made mistakes.
I mean, they got a different system.
It's possible.
Yeah. We can do something different. We need to do something different. Desperately need to do something different. This is crazy, and there is stuff that can be done, and these things are popular. Medicare is well regarded by people. I think at least of course these things vary. Polls are polls, whatever. The majority, at any rate, of Americans support Medicare for all. It's one of these things that we not all of us agree on, but the majority of us agree on, and we just cannot get because of the ruling class won't let us have it. And that's, ultimately what we need to do, like what you're talking about. We need to fight these fascists, fight the fascist Democrats, fight the fascist Republicans, and fight the ruling class, right? It is a matter of, this is a class struggle.
Yes. Yeah, no, and this
class
is,
struggle.
There is no war but class.
Yeah,
except unless you
right.
we go to the issues of Gaza. It's still, no
although
war
it is, yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting. The thing on Twitter, I am still tied to Twitter. My kids and my wife say I need to stop that.
There's nothing wrong with that. We can't abandon
that today, Gaza is for us what Spain was for our forebears 2 generations ago, 1936.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah.
It is a defining moment, and we are pretty clearly losing. There's no question. There's a host of people who have now stopped talking about we need a ceasefire. They have started talking about the dismemberment of the Israeli military because it is so brutal in general.
Yeah.
I still think, I still believe in, one democratic secular state from the river to the sea with equal rights. Well, I still think that's the way to go.
It's like the only option.
But it just gets harder and harder and harder to see.
Yeah.
And the part of the problem we've got, is we have leadership here that continues on both sides, Republican and Democrat, to completely support the Israeli. The Democrats, a day or two ago, had their conference. There was a couple of proposals, one to stop funding the military of Israel, another one just to call for a ceasefire in 2 states. Neither of them.
Yeah.
Even though something on the order of 80%, almost 90% of Democratic voters, as a poll, well, that was done, I don't have that. Agreeing with it. Agreeing that we need to stop doing this. We need to stop supporting this. The leadership is utterly out of touch. On the other hand, the leadership of Israel is not able to touch. There is I think we should put this is the Israel Democracy Institute.
It's so bad.
From July 2025. That basically showed that most Israelis, and when I say most, we are talking about 60 to 70%, 80% are in full sync with their government on ethnic cleansing, and something like nearly half are in sync with killing everything that moves in Gaza.
Yeah.
So there is a serious problem amongst our Israeli brothers and sisters. I'm sorry to say.
Speaking of fascist, and
I don't see an easy way around it. Unfortunately, the only people. Hamas continues to create mosses amongst the Israeli soldiers. Again, we are socialists. There's potential for every human being, even the ones that are on the wrong side now. So I take no joy in any of it. But, the only folks standing up for the... I'm sorry? Okay, start. Yemenis, the Iranians, that's the only people who are standing up. And the recent double tap event at Nasser Hospital, where they attacked the hospital, and then a couple minutes later, when EMS and reporters were there to record, they hit it again. And then Netanyahu said, "Well, this was just a mistake. Sorry, how bad." You don't double tap a place mistakenly. That was pretty clear.
No, I watched the video. They clearly waited for the first. It's Nazi stuff. They waited for the first responders to show up, and then they attacked them too. And of course, then there was there's been this long, I think, what is it, 250 journalists have been killed in Gaza, and then just recently, Anas, whatever his name was, anyway, one of the leading journalists for Al Jazeera was killed, and you see this emergence of this sort of legitimization, pre-assassination legitimization, and they just came out. They have I think it's called a legitimization unit, which is a special part of the Israeli government and the military, that is their whole jam. The reason that they exist is to create legitimization, and this was one of their projects, the assassination of this Anas al-Sharif, I think, right? Is that his name? Anas al-Sharif, yeah. He, and of course 9 other people that were in the cafe that they bombed. And they smeared him as they said he was a member of Hamas. There's no way. He was not. He was just a journalist. Anyway, so that's this whole thing, the assassination of journalists, in prelude to the full scale invasion and takeover of the north of Gaza. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we kind of got that in there. Maybe I'll put out a little separate thing. I don't want to keep you for too long, but he had some.
Well, we should. And the other thing that Comrade found,
his last words.
There's some work that's some reporting that's been done by this guy, former Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel. I think his last name is Gutierrez, who was part of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or Protection Unit, if you will, who whistle blew the absolute horror. The GHF is a paid subsidiary of the Israeli occupation force. That's exactly what they are. They are that. They are not a humanitarian organization. The people who primarily are the armed guards, if you will, for the GHF come from a motorcycle club that is a veterans motorcycle club. Actually have their name written down. Sorry, they're called the no, not called the Infidels. I forget what they're called. The motorcycle club is called. Maybe it is the Infidels. That's what I've written down. But their tasks are to eliminate Muslims and fight jihad. That's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do. And they are the ones carrying guns in Gaza for this Gaza Humanitarian Fund. So we can talk about more of this later, I think.
Yeah.
But
I just want. I thought it was important to touch on some of that stuff. And,
I agree.
Yeah, or we both.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
So that's it for now. Okay,
that's it for now.
We can do another one a little later. I'm going to focus more on.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
On the Spain of our time.
So good to see you. Yeah, I mean, maybe the next one we might do in person, huh?
That'd be cool.
We have to.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. And my granddaughter did say that she wants to be on with us, so we have to figure out a way to do that.
Very special guest.
We can talk about kids' books.
Cool.
We can talk about kids' books.
I love it. I love it so much.
Man, take care.
All right, I love you, man.
Stamattina mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sei